Hi, Dove here, and today we're doing an art review of RintaroKomori. He is a mecha slash creature slash character artist. I think he identifies as a concept artist, so that's good enough for us. Before we begin, I would like to kind of just update. I did miss out on a week uploading videos, and the reason why is because I got sick. I got this super high fever, and right now I'm kind of okay. The fever is mostly gone, but I still have this nasty kind of scratchy throat. So if I do cough in the video, just bear with me. I'll try to mute the mic as much as I can. But anyway, so I did find this guy RintaroKomori. He's similar to the guy I reviewed before, Okinawanogori. Not so much in style, but the way they just keep posting, it's a lot. Like you can really see a full feed of an entire like portfolio. And I do like seeing this kind of rich feed where you see a bunch of sketches, drawings, fully illustrated stuff, some half-baked ideas, you know? And I think this guy has a great portfolio or art feed that I think is very inspiring for you to it's nice to see, and I think it's the type of artwork that's going to make you want to draw or paint. And I do notice for this guy, by the way, I do notice, or I have seen some of your comments saying that I do scroll a lot, so it's kind of confusing to look at when, you know, it's on actual videos. So sorry about that. I'll try to. I did pick out some pieces to kind of zoom in into, but just to kind of go over his work. Heavy on the mecha, heavy on the creatures, and almost all of them have this characteristic to them, this humanistic characteristic, like they're doing something, and in a way they're being humanized. So I think that's you can see that all throughout his work, and it's kind of what makes his work somewhat fun, even if it's like a mech. Almost always like they're doing something. They're wearing clothes sometimes. Sometimes they're standing still. It doesn't really matter because that variety of attitudes, I guess, it makes even mechs and really like monstrous creatures come alive. So I do recommend you check out his portfolio on Twitter. I'm not sure if he's anywhere else, but I will link this page in the description below. So what's cool is if you zoom in on his work, he mainly limits himself to the round brush. Maybe in Photoshop, Clip Studio Paint, Procreate, whatever. Point is, he doesn't really like the brush, or he doesn't use a lot of brush variety. It's very direct, and that's what I like about his work. He reminds me a bit of John Wallin, Liberto, JaeCheol Park, Shinku Kim. These are like mainly mecha artists, and they have this distinct or a similar way of drawing where it's super direct, and oftentimes a round brush is being used a lot, or some kind of basic brush. So this one's a Chainsaw Man piece, and as much as it's painted, it still feels like a sketch. Like it's not super finished, but it's also not like super vague. Like you know what it is. It's Chainsaw Man with his, I forgot this chick's name, with his bike, his chainsaw bike. But you'll notice a lack of texture in his work because obviously the limitation using simply the round brush. I think you can get away, you can get a lot away with it. Am I saying it right? I mean, you can do reflections. I mean, that's kind of texture, but look at that. And sometimes some stuff feel more blurry than others. Maybe he'll start with a very small thumbnail and then expand it, and then he'll start painting on top of it. So yeah. Also, Craig Mullins, I think, is a similar artist that does use the round brush a lot. But I think JaeCheol Park and John Wallin Liberto, they're very similar to this guy because of the mecha aspect of it. And for this, I do see a lot of like broader, squarish, flat brushes being used. And yeah, not much texture, maybe just a bit, but it's not overwhelming. Like you don't see that gritty type of texture, like it feels like a painting from a canvas, you know, those types. It still has a very digital look to it. A bit of RGB shift over here, so that's nice. Or excuse me. And yeah, I do like it because excuse-moi. The oftentimes the Gundams or the creatures, I often see them in Gundams though, or these types of mechas where he'll add some clothes and humanize them a bit. And I think that's something that's important to take away, is that it feels like this guy is having fun with his canvas page, with his sketchbook page, and that's what it feels like, even if it's painted, somewhat rendered. I mean, it's not all the way painted or rendered. It's not a full illustration, like for ready for, you know, for print level types or poster types or wallpaper types. But it's enough to kind of make you understand what the thing is, add some color, it adds some life, you know. But there's a fuck. That I'm so sorry. Christ. There's a freeing element to his work which I really like. And I think he gets a lot of done because he doesn't waste time using a lot of fancy, smanchy brushes. And with the round brush, you can be very broad, you can be very tight. I mean, if you zoom out, it gets super tight with like the shoulders, the arms, and especially the face of this Gundam mech. And focus on the two mechs in the back. They're just copies of each other. So once you do one, you can just copy it over on the other side. If you zoom in again, some parts do feel a bit more blurry, so maybe I'm assuming it's a thumbnail, expand it, and then you paint on top of it, add the details. But look at how freeing it is. Look at how fast you can go with these types of pieces. And the colors too, they're very subtle. For example, if you look at the reflections of these wings, obviously there's kind of under lighting, but it's very softly done. I don't think the soft brush was used. I think it's a basic round brush, just constantly kind of back and forthly rendered. You know, like it's old school shading in that sense. So you don't need a lot of brush variety to get this kind of dynamic work, because you can compensate with the pose. For example, for this piece, texture brush is non-existent, but because of the pose, even if it's not fully detailed or rendered, it feels already, you know, like this could be like a poster, right? And you can add some like graphic text here or whatever. But yeah, it just composition wise, it's already there. You can just add more, you know, details later on. But again, zoom in. Do you see brush variety? I don't. But it still looks right, you know. Now here, some human figures to add some scale. Looks kind of scary. You know, the white eyes, but interesting. This one does remind me of Shinku Kim, the design work. The design style anyway. Now this one's more of an original character, I would assume. Now the head design does feel a bit more Gundam-ish because of the horns, like the triangular kind of thing, the orange thing here. But again, I don't see a lot of brush variety, just mainly the round brush being used. And I think that's a really great message, is just to be free with your art and not waste so much time. Excuse me. Maybe you can achieve that freedom with having multiple brushes, but however you can feel that freedom, you pursue that, and think you can end up with a portfolio or with a body of work like Rintaro over here. Some environment work just to add some atmosphere, but it's most like a soft brush thing, some smoke, some fog. But again, yeah, these are the more character designs. We have a samurai in the back. This one reminds me of the Star Wars mecha, right? The Rebel mech. A bit blurry, but it's okay. And the colors are often not as... there is some saturation, but it's not overdone. This one definitely, the bike is way more like bright. I haven't seen an Evangelion inspired piece. I see more Gundam stuff. For example, like I think these are the bad guys. You know, I'm not really into the lore of Gundam, but I know that the design of the heads, they're from the bad guy. Sorry. they're from the bad guy mechs, if you know what I mean. They're the enemy mechs. But again, look at how he adds like a jacket, like they're bikers or cyclists. You know, you're kind of humanizing these mechas. You know, like, and it looks like he's having fun. Sometimes you'll see pages like this where it's just a bunch of random stuff, weird stuff. And I think you do need pieces or pages like this where you just go all out and just sketch a bunch of weird stuff. And I think this is what sketchbooks are supposed to look like. Or you should at least have pages like this where you're not really pressured to present this level of work where it's like a one-hit piece, you know? Because this one can be a poster, right? And again, zoom in. Do you see any brush variety? No. I do think you need to be a bit more smart with your layering, you know, using clipping masks and all for these types of things because it can get messy. And you are playing with a lot of shapes, so it's beneficial to kind of organize things this way. And especially when you're dealing with multiple characters, obviously, it's a must. Here we have a dinosaur. Some kind of is this a dinosaur? Or a Pokemon? I think it's a Digimon or something. I remember this head design from somewhere. I think it's a Digimon, right? Can't remember, but interesting. Not many creatures, mainly mechs, but it has the same vibe, very playful. These ones are more character stuff, samurai. The head design here is very mecha, or Gundam mecha. For the bad guy Gundam mecha. Excuse me, but again, if you zoom in, round brush. This one does feel way more colorful than the others. For the background, often it's just like a white or plain colored background with a bit of a gradient. This one, it's a mix of a mecha and an insect. And I do see that often in this work. Sometimes they'll just mash different concepts and make something out of random or two different subjects. I do see some mixer brush maybe being used for this part right here. Right? This one feels like the Gundam anatomy is a bit different. The head design definitely is Gundam-esque, but the body feels kind of long and elongated. But it still works, right? We see a couple here for scale. Yeah, it's mostly in darks and in silhouette. It's a sunset piece, right? I do like the mood of it. So, and again, there's a lot of storytelling in his work. This one feels more like calm and moody and like chill, like lo-fi, sunset, chill vibes. You see this too, where he'll take an animal, maybe a car, in this case a beaver, and he'll try to mechanize it in some way and use that as inspiration. And you can see here, it looks kind of like Optimus Prime in a way. The build and the horns, right? So maybe this guy is also inspired by Transformers, right? Here you have the car. Reminds me of Evan Lee. Evan Lee likes to draw or paint cars or render cars sometimes. And you'll see Evan Lee's work have these sorts of things as well, like mecha parts and stuff. I mean, look at that. I do see a bit more soft brushes being used. So you do have to be a bit more careful here because I think you do need to be a bit more smart, again, with your layering. Because I do see a lot of like cut or straight cut edges, like it's been erased or lassoed out. You do need to be a bit more. It still has that impressionistic vibe where it's very direct, but it's not exactly that chaotic where you can't understand it. Like everything is shit. Sorry. Everything is where everything makes sense. Right? Like, you know where the wheels are and like everything. Like there's a lot of consistency in the work. Like it's not all made up. I mean, everything is made up, no shit, but like there's some design sense. Like it feels like it's been thought about, right? And it's an interesting challenge to kind of make this car. And maybe you render and paint out the car. So in a way, you're also practicing doing like the reflections and the shape forms, shape designs. And by doing this kind of study of the car, once you do the actual make, some of that knowledge from drawing, painting, and rendering the car will get transferred to the actual mech. So I think these things, or these types of challenges or studies, can be very beneficial. I mean, look at that. Iconic as hell. Even the car itself looks nice. It's a good study. It's somewhat accurate, right? And I think this guy leads more with shape rather than form. I mean, you can tell that there's form in his work because there are values and everything, but I think we look at the way the shapes are done. I think there's a lot of exaggeration, a lot of like blocky elements there. And I think that's what he primarily leads with. Nice guns though. Right? This one's a pickup truck. Big boy, right? These exhaust pipes here are kind of part of the guns too. Very interesting. And again, zoom in. Round brush. I mean, you could have just taken like a camouflage texture, ammo texture, but it's all just painted in. Effort. Right? Pretty cool. And it's like he has a lot of this in his feed. I mean, it's impossible to not get inspired. I mean, what are your excuses? I mean, round brush challenge, anyone, right? Look at that. Is it what is this? Like a Chevrolet Mustang on steroids? Very cool. Character design, soldiers. Yeah, he also likes drawing like warriors, soldiers, samurais, and stuff like that. And again, from this piece, the shape design is really strong. The composition is strong because of the shapes being used. Very dynamic, very elongated. It goes across the entire like canvas. I do see a bit of RGB shift being done here for the effects. Let's zoom in on the face. Look at that. Brush variety, it's not there. Just a round brush. And it's mostly opaque. Some opacity here and there for blending. I'm not sure if he's using just one, maybe two round brushes. One for the solid stuff or the opaque stuff. And then one for more blending of work. Look at this. Even though it's not a full painted piece, it's a story. There's like a narrative there's a narrative to this thing. Maybe it's trying to catch something. Maybe it's stuck somewhere in cyberspace, right? And it's reaching out to something, maybe to its pilot, whatever. And I do like the use of the RGB shift. It adds that special something to your piece, right? Sometimes it's a glare, sometimes it's a RGB shift. Whatever it is, maybe just add that one thing. And oftentimes that's enough to kind of add a bit of sparkle to your piece. Again, here humanizing the Gundam. In this case, they're bad boys, delinquents, right? And even the helmet is kind of dark and black. Very interesting. And again, heavy on the shapes. And I do notice the figures tend to be long. Like, they're kind of tall oftentimes. These are the bad Gundams. I'm sure there's a proper name for these guys, but they're part of the Gundam universe. Different sect, an enemy kind of deal. I mean, I know there are no enemies, right? I think the concept of these shows, Gundam shows, they sort of play or they show you both sides. So it's kind of easy to empathize with different groups in these Gundam shows. But again, look at the patterns of the clothes. I mean, isn't that cool? Just painting it in with a round brush, right? We zoom out, it's still it's there. It makes sense, right? I do see some bling, the Hawaiian gangster, right? Vibes, right? But yeah, look at the pants here. It's basically in silhouette with some suggestion of folds here, but that's it. It's like a Bad Boys, you know the movie Bad Boys? It has that vibe, right? A duo team. I do recommend the work of John Wallin Liberto. I think I mentioned him already, but lots of he has a lot of these sorts of paintings where it's closing in on a specific mech. I think John Wallin Liberto did some Evangelion inspired sketches or pieces, but it has the same vibe. Brown brush, very impressionistic. Once you zoom in, though, you can. Sure, when you zoom in, but there's often detail there. Like it's not fully like super sketchy. And you can feel like this thing is a painted piece, you know. So there is that human element, even if you can see and tell that the round brush is being used, even if it has a digital visual look to it. Like the way it's all added together, it feels like it was done by a human being, right? And I like it. And even Ruin G, I'm feeling a bit of Ruin G in this. Although Ruin G has more gritty brushstrokes. I'm not sure if he likes using the round brush. But look at how much you can achieve with the basic round brush. Look at that. Strong king, right? Another Gundam piece from below. Look at that. This one I do see more squarish brushes, but again, they don't really have that much texture in their work. It looks good, right? Makes sense, makes sense. I do like these ones. These are more like comic types of ideations. Narrative, sequential art. Oh shit, where am I? I'm not sure which one's first, but look at that. So he's using a few values here. The shadow value, the mid-tone, and then the lighting or the lit area in the background, right? And I think that's enough to tell a story. 3 major values: light, a mid, and then the shadows. Even if you remove the mid-tones or the gray, the shadows alone can give you an understanding of what that thing is. I mean, look at this Gundam right here with this mech. Take away the gray stuff, it has a very strong presence because of that shadow. Even here and even here in the close-ups, it just works. So if you can get the darks right, the midtones and the lighting, and follow through it and make it even better. But it's yeah, interesting. So there are like magical powers being used. Look at that lighting, right? Interesting. Another narrative piece or sequential art. So these are like magical witches that have like some kind of power along with their Gundam. Very interesting. You know, Gundam sometimes, the shows anyway, sometimes they'll add some magical, it almost feels like a magical thing where they'll add like powers and stuff. And it does have, as much as it's mostly sci-fi, it does have like a fantasy spiritual feel. So maybe that's what this artist is going for. Who knows? But I do like it. The sketch is very, it's easy to read, easy to follow through. Look at that. It's being shot down by the witches. Right? Interesting. The 2 Gundams fighting. This one's the smaller one. The green one's like the Hulk, basically. It's like the Hulk Gundam, right? And they're fighting with sabers. I do know in the I think they're pointed in the show. This one does have a lot of like spiritual elements to it. It feels like it's closer to Evangelion, I would believe, because Evangelion has a lot of the Christianity type of background, where it likes to play with those concepts. Here we see the Gundam mecha kind of confronting this god of sorts, right? Look at that. Nice. Here we have Adam and Eve. Ooh, damn, interesting. Another close-up of Gundam, this time the accent color being red, but again, zoom in. Zoom in, look at that. Round brushes all the way, and the edges don't always have to be like super sharp, super clean. Because if you zoom out anyway, you can kind of just fill in the gaps and sort of average things out. And I think that's what's nice about his work, is you can really zoom in and see how it's not always all the way there, but you know, if you keep painting on top of it, eventually you'll realize the forms, the shapes that need to be realized. And again, you know, learn how to prioritize things. For example, I do know the horns right here, the horns and the head. I think they're mostly done last because they're kind of overlapping certain things. It makes sense if you do them last and above new layers, right? Or in new layers. I mean, you can do this with by being, you know, doing this in one layer, but I think for stuff like this, it helps to just section things out, like the shoulders, the arms, the chest, the head, other details, because you know it saves time. Like these stuff right here, like the tattoos or the prints, can save them for last. Not everything is detailed. If you zoom out or go further to the sides, you can still see the really big round brushes being used. But as you go deeper, the brushes get smaller and smaller. There's way more like shading and rendering, right? Look at that. So that's it for this art review of RintaroKomori. Excuse me for the coughs because I'm not all the way there yet, but eventually I'm coming back fully recovered. But yeah, check out this guy. I'm not sure if he's anywhere else, but I think Twitter is enough. Just hit the media tab, obviously, and you can see like all of his bountiful, rich concept art. Mainly on the mecha, some creatures here and there. But if you're trying to get back into drawing, painting, I think this guy is definitely, he's kind of like Okinawanogori, where they do post often. And it's just like you get a rich portfolio, and because you see a lot of it, like you feel like you need to catch up as well. So that's also the benefit of looking at Rintaro's work, is not just the art style, but the art content. Like there's so much of it, like you're gonna have to, or you're gonna want to catch up to this guy. So I think this is the perfect opportunity for us to catch up and do our own playful drawings and paintings the same way Rintaro does. You know, adding, humanizing the Gundams, the mechs, drawing a bunch of weird stuff in certain pages, doing some sequential art, whatever it is, just draw it out. And you don't even have to have the best brushes. I mean, look at this guy, round brush, and still he was able to achieve this rich and amazing, really eye-catching work in his Twitter or X page. So hopefully you're inspired by this guy's work. Please follow him, and I'll see you in the next art review. Bye.